Again, if you've just joined us, hello, I'm Eric Goplerud. I'm both the facilitator of a group, a work group of the UU congregations in DC, Maryland, and Virginia that's working on energy efficiency, reduction of greenhouse gases in their facilities. I'm also the project manager for a Buildings Up award from the Department of Energy to the Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions. Initially, this was a meeting that we had asked Jerry Lawson and Thayer Tomlinson from EPA Energy Star Portfolio Manager to talk to the UU group. But it seemed like such a juicy topic and it's such an important topic that we broadened it out to others in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area, other congregations. So I'm Eric Goplerud, as I was mentioning, with the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Fairfax in Virginia. And this is one of a series of workshops that are focused on reducing the energy waste in our congregation's facilities. And an absolutely crucial first step is knowing what you're trying to reduce. Having a tool and using a tool that will help you monitor what the intensity of energy use in your building is. And hopefully, as you do upgrades to the energy efficiency of your building, you can check and monitor that you're having an impact. Or if you're not having an impact, which was one of the things that happened in my church, you can start digging around and trying to find out how come the numbers are not going down. So what I'd like to do is to introduce Jerry Lawson of the Environmental Protection Agency. He has been a leader for years and years, helping to get congregations and small businesses to monitor their energy efficiency, their utility bills, to drive down the waste of energy in our buildings. And then, Jerry, I'll let you introduce Thayer.
Okay. Thank you, Eric. And it's years and years and years and years. And it's been a great, really privilege and joy to work with the faith community. And on behalf of EPA, I would like to thank all of you for your commitment to sustainability, for caring for creation. You represent, if you will, a demographic that EPA really values. You speak with a unique authority to climate change and to issues of environmental justice and other related issues. I've been privileged for many years also to work with Thayer Tomlinson as my support contractor consultant. Thayer, her title is project manager with Energy and Security Group. She has really become my go-to expert on the tool she'll be discussing tonight, Portfolio Manager. EPA has, I think, around 350,000 commercial buildings and several thousand houses of worship using Portfolio Manager. Thayer will go into detail on what it can do and how it works. And really, I didn't want to take up much time other than to say thank you. I am impressed with the number of people that have answered Eric's call to be with us this evening on election eve here in Virginia in so many states. So Eric has made a point. We are closing down at 8, so we can get back to the very important news. So with that, let me ask Thayer Tomlinson to take over and to share her screens.
Thank you, Jerry, and thank you, Eric, for this opportunity. And I'll start off by saying I'm going to do a brief overview on what Portfolio Manager means and what benchmarking your energy use means, why it's important. And then I'll give you a live training of actually setting up a property within the Energy Star Portfolio Manager tool. This training is being recorded, and I think that's important to highlight because I am not going to speed through this, but there's a lot of detail that I'll be moving through so I can show you the full scope of what it means to benchmark a building. The last slide in my presentation, and
I think in February, I think that this group has to sit down and go through all the.
Please put yourself on mute.
And what I'll do is when I'm done with this presentation, Eric, I will also send you my slides so you can share that with the group. That also has my email address on there. So as you start your portfolio manager and benchmarking journey, please feel free to reach out if you have any questions, or frankly, if you want to just get on a quick Zoom call and go through your account if something's not adding up and making sense. I'm always happy to do that. And as Jerry mentioned, this is a government program, so it's taxpayer funded, so there's no charge to you at all to utilize our time, tools, and expertise. So I'm going to start sharing my screen and just go through some introductory slides. And then, as I said, I will move over into the Portfolio Manager tool and show you how to add a property in that and actually start tracking your energy use there. Okay, so we're going to go through benchmarking energy use in Portfolio Manager tonight. And I think it's really helpful to talk quickly on why we're focusing on buildings and plants. In the United States, 45% of our carbon dioxide emissions are from buildings and plants. And so looking at greenhouse gas reductions, buildings and plants, especially through energy efficiency, is an excellent place to start. We also know that buildings waste a great deal of energy on the whole. We find that 30% of the energy used in buildings is wasted energy. And so that provides, one, that's a lot of energy, but two, also some great opportunities to significantly reduce that greenhouse gas emissions footprint through saving energy. We also find that about 10% of that energy that is wasted is low and no cost reduction potential. And so there are a lot of opportunities to do fairly low and no cost energy management activities that will save a good deal. We have resources through EPA, such as a checklist and other toolkits that show you the steps you can take for energy efficiency at your worship facility. I'm not focusing on that tonight, but those are other great opportunities. And Jerry, maybe we could put the checklist link in the chat just to have that link there as well. So tonight we're talking about benchmarking. And benchmarking basically allows you to understand where you are. We always say that you can't manage your energy without measuring it. And so it allows you to see where your worship facility is compared to other worship facilities of a similar type, of a similar size, and of a similar heating and cooling zone. So you have a really good understanding of where you are, and then as you make efficiency improvements, of how you are saving energy. To create an opportunity for anyone to benchmark their energy, and I should say right now, you can also benchmark your water use in a cutting edge, free of charge, secure system. EPA created the Portfolio Manager tool. And this allows you as a user, and I'm going to say you as users right now in this presentation are worship facilities. So your worship facility can assess all of your energy and water consumption. You can look at green power purchases, and you can share and report the data. This tool, also by adding your use details and your utility bills, will allow you to understand how your greenhouse gas emissions change over time. And that would be any energy-related greenhouse gas emissions that's associated with your building. And depending on what and where you are in terms of your benchmarking, you can potentially apply for Energy Star certification. And if we have time, I'll talk about that at the end. There's also a great deal of metrics. So once we set up an account, which I'll show you in a minute, and once you put data in your accounts, you can start looking at how your energy use is changing over time. You can look at both weather normalized energy that would take into consideration a hotter than usual summer or a colder than usual winter. So you can really have a clear picture of how your energy use is changing. You can also take a look at how your greenhouse gas emissions are changing. If your worship facility purchases green power, how does that impact your overall greenhouse gas emissions? And so today I'm going to go through 4 major parts of Portfolio Manager. And I want to highlight that it's helpful to think of Portfolio Manager as a tool. And it takes a little time to get used to it, but I believe, working through Portfolio Manager for over 15 years now, it's very accessible if you go through it step by step. And so each of you will set up a user account in Portfolio Manager, and that is for you. That is for you as a user to use the tool. We'll look briefly at the data collection worksheet so you understand what types of data you need to pull together to put your property into Portfolio Manager. And then we'll walk through the process of setting up a property in Portfolio Manager. And then with time, we can look at trends and understand our overall energy and water use and how those things change. I am very lucky to have been granted use of data from one of your fellow worship facilities. So we'll actually see real property data going into the tool this evening. So I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint, and we're going to move into the internet portion of this so I can kind of show you a live training. So let me get rid of this and go into my screen. Okay. So when we first set up an account in Portfolio Manager, and can someone give me a thumbs up that you can see my screen? That's the Portfolio Manager screen. Thank you very much. Okay, so to set up an account for yourself, if you do not already have a user account, and again, I will send you the slides so you have all the URLs here. You go to energystar.gov/benchmark, and here's how you set up an account. If you don't already have one, you can just click on Create an Account. Now, Portfolio Manager knows I have an account, so it doesn't want me to create a new one, but at least I can show you the kind of information it's asking for. You'll need to create a username, a password, and just tell the system a little bit about yourself. If you're creating this account on behalf of your worship facility, you could have a single worship facility account that's tied to a single email at your worship facility. And then you could all, if you wanted to, log in and share that account through your worship facility. Just put some very basic information in here. Again, this is all quite basic. One of the things I do highlight is I always recommend that you click yes here to make yourself findable if someone searches you by other users. And this is mainly so, people like me, if you're asking for help, I can connect with you within Portfolio Manager. I can find you, and then if you allow me to, I can take a look at your data. I cannot see your data, and no one can see your data unless you actually grant permission to share that data with me. But it's a really helpful thing if you want someone to go in and take a look at your account. So once you set this up, then you have an account in Portfolio Manager. So next time you would come to this menu, you could say, okay, here I am, I'm Thayer Tomlinson, I'm logging in, and then you would log into the system. When you log into the system for the first time, you'll see this window, and every time you log in, you'll see this window. This is where you have your whole dashboard. Many of you may only have a single property in the system. As you can see, I have 377. Those are not my own. Many of those are properties that users have shared with me, where I'm walking them through it. But this is kind of the overall dashboard right when you log in. Now in this presentation, we're going to add a property. And this is what you would do after you create an account for yourself and log in. Now you have the opportunity to add a property. And we're going to walk through that. However, before we add a property, I want to just take a quick look at what type of data it's best to have on hand as you add a property. And so in my slides, I put a link to the data collection worksheet. And there's a wonderful worksheet. There's my window. Okay, so here Energy Star has gotten really good at providing us everything we need to benchmark our building. And so before you go in and set up your property, I recommend taking a look and downloading a data collection worksheet. And that'll just tell you what data you need to benchmark your property. Now, if we're benchmarking a worship facility, we're going to go under religious worship. And now we can look up the required data. So what we know is that we need this piece of information for all properties, whether you're benchmarking your house, your business, anything. All properties need this data here. Additionally, Energy Star has found that worship facilities, they can better refine the score. Worship facilities need this additional information because that allows the tool to compare worship facility to worship facility and take into consideration all of the distinct operating characteristics that worship facilities have that make them different from other types of buildings. The great thing about the data collection worksheet is you can just click on create a Word document or create a PDF. Your computer will download it, and then you'll have it on hand as you work through setting up your account. So in my instance, I downloaded a data collection worksheet and I put all of my data in. So I'm all set now when I go back to Portfolio Manager to add in my data and go into my account. And again, this is exactly the type of information it was asking for: my floor area, my operating hours, my seating capacity. If any of these pieces of information, you're like, would it be this or would it be this? Portfolio Manager has also built that in. So as you can see, if I mouse over any of these terms, I can click on that and I will get a definition of the type of data Portfolio Manager wants. It'll tell me the specifics of what weekly operating hours in this instance mean for me and for my worship facility. So I'll have a better understanding of putting exact data in. One of the things I want to highlight is when you set up your Portfolio Manager account, it's very easy to go in and correct data or update data. And so I want to highlight that you don't need to be afraid of making a mistake in there. We can go in and fix anything other than you deleting your account, and then we'll just make a new account for you. Okay, so now I've got my data. I've got my personal account. And so now I'm going to go back to Portfolio Manager, and I'm going to add a property. I'm ready to go. So let's get started. Portfolio Manager has a number of tools that will help you walk through this process. Again, there's tips on the side. And if you don't know anything, any of the text in here that's in blue, you can click on and it'll give you more information. So I know that my property type, similar as I did the data collection worksheet, is going to be under religious worship, and I'm a worship facility. Now for my demonstration this evening, I am going to say I am a single building. Some of you may have a property that includes multiple buildings where you have, say, a school, a worship facility, and maybe some residential space, and they all kind of share meters back and forth. Portfolio Manager can handle that. And so then you would click on my property includes multiple buildings. And then you'll start looking at how these things all connect. What what meters connect to which buildings and how each of those buildings are used. And you can do that. For this demonstration, I'm just going to say we have a single worship facility that all of the utilities go to that one property. And then we can say, okay, do I have an existing building? Is it in design, or I'm going to do a test? So you would all say existing unless you're doing a design. I'm going to click on test for tonight because I've got a lot of buildings in my account and I want to keep this as a test. So I'm just clicking on and I'm going to say, let's get started. The first thing we'll need to do as we set this up is just do some basic information about our property. Important things for us to think through is having correct information, at least in terms of zip code. And why is zip code important? Zip code is important because, sorry, let me go back to the correct window here. There we are. Zip code is important because Portfolio Manager uses your zip code to pull utility data from the power plants that supply that zip code. In this way, we can get really exacting greenhouse gas emissions profile because the tool will know the power plant that is providing you electricity and can then give us an understanding of what power is used to produce your electricity, which also impacts your greenhouse gas emissions. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to add in this information and then we will move on to getting our building set up. And if anyone has any questions as I'm walking through this, please feel free to take yourself off mute if you need something that's specifically clarified. So my worship facility was built in 1994 and I have 7,800 square feet. Having the floor area is very important because it really gives the tool the data it needs to give you an accurate understanding of your energy use efficiency and therefore your Energy Star score. As I noted earlier, Portfolio Manager can also track your water use. So if you are on municipal water and want to track your irrigation, you can do that as well. If you don't know that yet and want to come back and do this later, that's absolutely fine and easy to do. And then we get to occupancy. Most of you are going to be 100%. If you had a tenant space that was unoccupied but was heated and conditioned, you could reduce that occupancy. But I'm going to suggest, as you set these up, put yourself in at 100% occupancy. It makes it a lot easier. Okay, and then this bottom question is really helpful to get some clarity on your specific worship facility. These are the types of questions that Portfolio Manager, through a lot of data collection, knows that are the most common add-ons or additions in worship facilities. That you've got parking, K-12 school, a social meeting hall, classroom space, or a daycare center. So I'm going to say that my worship facility has parking, okay? And then we're going to start telling Portfolio Manager about how it's used. So right now, my building is 7,800 square feet. It's current as of January 1, 1994, because I told the system that my building was built in 1994. If you want to change that, you can go in and change that. If you have an addition to make, you can add that in as well. I'm going to say that we operate 30 hours a week and our seating capacity is 200. One of the things we know is that food preparation and kitchen equipment takes up more energy than other use types. And so that's one of the factors that is included here is food preparation. So we have 400 square feet used for food preparation, and we heat 100% and we cool 100% of our building. Even if you don't use air conditioning, it can be cooled. And so I'd always recommend putting 100% in there. As you'll notice here, as I had remarked earlier, anything that's in this blue text, you can mouse over and just get some understanding of what that actually means in terms of the definition for Energy Star. One other thing that's helpful to think through is as you're collecting data and as you're collecting specific data, these points that have the blue star in them means that that data is considered significant enough to be included in your Energy Star score calculation. And in a minute, I will go through what the Energy Star score means. But basically, it's a measurement between 1 and 100 that ranks you in terms of your building's energy efficiency. And that is compared to similar worship facilities of similar size with similar use characteristics and similar zip code, heating and cooling zones. And so if you don't know any data and you have to prioritize what data you need to get, I would always prioritize getting these blue stars first, because that'll give you the best accurate representation. However, if you don't know, but you want to set up your account, you can always click use a default. And that will basically say the average with these characteristics is going to be 312 seating capacity. But I know that we are actually 200. So I'm going to put that in there. Now, I also know that we have cooking facilities. We're open 5 days a week. You'll notice that this is only asking for your weekdays open. Portfolio manager assumes that worship facilities are likely going to already be open on the weekends. No matter what the denomination or the faith group, it assumes that the weekends are open. And so it's really only asking how many weekdays you are open. I'm going to have us have 5 computers, no commercial refrigerator or freezer units. We have maybe 1 or 2 household refrigerators, but no commercial ones. And our ceiling height is 23 feet. So that is us in, kind of a synopsis. Now, as you remember earlier, we did tell the system that we have a parking lot. And so it's now going to ask us a couple questions about parking. I'm going to say that we have 12,000 square foot parking lot. None of it is an enclosed garage. And none of it is partially enclosed. Note here that because these are stars, you need to put a 0 in here. You'll get an error message if you leave this blank. So just put a 0 in if that doesn't pertain to you. We do not have supplemental heating. Okay. So now we've put in all the use details from our handy data collection worksheet, and we can click on adding a property. And look at that. We've successfully created our property. We've given the tool the use details we collected from our data collection worksheet. And we've got this all set up in here. Next time we log in on that entry page, this property will be sitting right there waiting for us to look at it. However, as you can see here, we have basically nothing is available to us yet. And that's because we haven't put in any energy use data. And Portfolio Manager really pulls all the metrics from the energy use data that we're providing us. Before we go in and add our energy use data, let me show you a few things here. Anytime you go in to your property, this is your entry screen. And you can see here that we have the summary tab that shows us our metrics. It shows us who we're sharing this property with. Right now, it's just me. And if we click on the details tab, it'll basically tell us the details that we told Portfolio Manager earlier. Here is the place that if you want to change anything, you can just edit your use details here. If you realized, oh, we're more like 60 weekly operating hours, just click on edit use details and you can go in and change that. Here's some basic information about us. Here's also your Portfolio Manager ID. If you ever have a question about your account and you want some help and someone asks you what your ID is, it's right here. they can usually find your building from your email address or your name, but this is a helpful thing just to know where it is. We also know that we're a worship facility, and we haven't given portfolio manager too much other information yet. So now that we've added our use details, we're going to go in and provide our energy details. Right now, we get that nice red exclamation mark because we've not told the system anything about our energy use. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a meter, and I'm going to show you how to add meters. For many of you, and this is just my guess, everyone has different systems. My guess is many of you will have an electric meter. And in my worship facility, we purchase electricity from the grid, and we only have 1 meter. You may generate from solar panels or wind turbines on site, and then you can click those and it'll ask you how many meters. If you purchase green power, you're still purchasing it from the grid. And so you still would fill it out like this, and then later on, it'll ask you about green power purchases. And I'm going to guess that many of you also have a natural gas meter, and you have a single meter there. Now, again, as you can see, as I'm scrolling down, there are infinite opportunities to really specify how you get your energy. And I don't think I've ever had a situation where we couldn't figure out how someone got their energy and portfolio manager could understand that. For this, though, we're going to say I have 1 meter electricity and 1 meter natural gas. And so I'm going to tell the system, yes, let's get started. Okay, so now I have to tell the system a little bit about my meters. It's not a huge amount of information, and this is all information that you can find on your utility bills. And as you can see, first is natural gas. So I can click on that meter, and then it'll take me to a couple squares of what information the system needs. I know that I buy my natural gas as cubic feet. Again, this information will be on your utility bills, or you can ask your utility for it. And many of us don't know when our meters became active, but I told the system that my worship facility was built in 1994. So that's the date my meter became active. If you are taking meters on and offline and you've got a long history there, you can then you can tell the system when it became inactive and a lot of other things. But for just benchmarking your facility, this is basically the information you need to tell it. One thing we do run into sometimes is if you get heating fuel as maybe propane or heavy fuel oil and it comes in as a delivery, you can click it as enter as delivery. And that's when a truck comes and fills up a tank. If it's metered from a utility, you're good at this point. Similarly, now I'm going to move on to my electric meter. And again, when I click on that box, it'll pull down and tell me the information I need. I buy my electricity as kilowatt hours, which most of us do. And my meter became active at the same time. And that's all I need to tell the system. I can now move over and create my meters. So at this point, Portfolio Manager knows my use details, and it knows that I have 2 meters. Now's the point when I can put my energy use information into the system and start actually seeing data. There's a couple ways that I can get my information into the system. Some of you, depending on where you are, may purchase power from utilities that once you have an account set up, can basically do something called auto benchmarking, where they will take your monthly utility information and they will just put it into your account. It depends on your utility, and I don't off the top of my head know which utilities have all of those. For many of us, though, we may just have to go in and enter our utility billing data. Now you can enter it in a couple ways. You can enter it by hand. If you have a stack of paper bills and you want to go in and enter them by hand, you just click on add an entry and you put the start date, the end date, and again, we're at natural gas here, and then the cost. And then you add another entry and you add another entry, and you can go month to month like that. However, I have gotten my utility billing data in advance, and someone was very generous and gave me a spreadsheet of data. And so what you can do is, if you have electronic data, you can download a spreadsheet template, put it in, and then upload your spreadsheet. This is, I think, the best way to do it, especially if you don't have automatic benchmarking with your utility. If you've got a pile of paper bills, I would recommend downloading the spreadsheet, putting your bills into the spreadsheet, and then uploading the spreadsheet. Now, in my situation, I have downloaded a spreadsheet, and as you can see here, I've got my natural gas spreadsheet, and I downloaded this from Portfolio Manager. I'm going to show it to you briefly just so you can see the type of data that it is asking for. It's pretty easy. It's the start date, the end date, my use, cost is optional, and whether or not I'm estimating that. An estimation only means if I don't know if that's certain data and I'm kind of guessing between 2 months. For most situations, you'll have your utility bills and you can just put no in there. So that's my natural gas. And as you can see, the spreadsheet's nice and filled out, and it's ready to go. I downloaded that from the system. And so now when I go back to this window, I am here on my natural gas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just browse my computer. I'm going to find that natural gas spreadsheet that I just showed you. I'm going to open it and I'm going to upload it. And then, voila, all my data is filled into the system. And I've got 3, 4, 5 years of data sitting in there. Before I do anything else, make sure you go to the bottom and click continue. This will save your data in the system. But before I go and continue, I'm also going to add in my electricity data. Now I'm going to scroll up again. As you saw with my utilities, I have my natural gas and my electricity. And there's these kind of arrow, I think they call them carrots. I'm looking at my natural gas data right now. I can close that and go down here and open my electric grid meter. I know right now that I have no data in my electric meter, and I have just uploaded a spreadsheet with a lot of data in my natural gas meter. So I think my natural gas is pretty good to go, and I'm going to now upload data in my electric grid meter. And similarly, I had already downloaded the spreadsheet, so I'm going to go on my computer and upload my electricity data. I'm going to open that and I'm going to upload it. I'm going to show you what this error means with the gaps as soon as I upload this. And here we go. There we go. Okay, so there's all my electricity data, and I've got 3, 4 years of electricity data. Now you saw that box that popped up, which is like an error message. And all Portfolio Manager is saying with that is, I told the system that my meter became active January 1st, 1994, but the first data I'm giving it is not until December 2019. That's fine. It doesn't matter. It will allow me, you know, say I suddenly got access to 15 years of data, sorry, 25 years of data. I can go back and put that all in if I want to. So now I've got my natural gas data in here, and I've got my electricity data in here. And now I'm going to go to the bottom of the screen and just click continue. So this now shows me that I've got all my data in the system. But what I still haven't done yet is told the system whether or not I have additional ways I'm getting energy. I don't. I only have those 2 meters. They account for all my consumption. And so I'm going to click this. This accounts for every bit of consumption in my property, and I'm going to apply that. So now something interesting is going to happen. I'm going to start seeing some really interesting data because I've given the system data. On the energy tab, I can start looking at my score, and I can start seeing where my information is. I know I have an electric meter and a natural gas meter. If I want to go in and add more data, I just need to click on those meters.
So if there was a solar involvement, that would have shown itself already, and we would have a meter for that, correct?
Sure. So if you're producing solar on site, yes, you would have set up an additional meter for solar on site. And say you already have this and you install solar, you can just click add a meter. And then you can put your solar on there as well, so that your building will take into consideration all of those ways that you're getting electricity. Okay, so now we know where our energy is. Let's go back to our summary. Our summary now is going to tell us some interesting information. It's going to tell us that the first 12 months of utility data is our baseline, and that's across the board. That's where you're starting from. And if you can go back and put 3-4 years of energy data in, outstanding. It gives you a really good idea of what your trends look like. Now, in my situation, I have a worship facility that likely was not using as much power. As you can see, I've got everything here is in red, which means in a sense, I'm getting less efficient. And this is where you start looking at the numbers and saying, wow, our energy performance is decreasing. Why is that? In this case, it looks like because we were not fully taking care of all the things we needed to take care of. We had a very mildew basement, and now we're actually conditioning that basement. And so now we're looking at our current score, which is a 62. And as I said earlier, the Energy Star score gives us an understanding of where we are. It's a 1 to 100 ranking, and as a 62, we are above the median, but we do not qualify for Energy Star certification. Energy Star certification is only the top quartile of buildings, and those are the top most efficient buildings. And you can see that we don't currently, we're not currently eligible. However, with a 62, we're only 13 points away from a 75 where we would come into consideration. So we're getting close. We can start now looking at where we are. And then as we make efficiency improvements and as our energy use and utility bills change, this will be reflected in our score moving forward. If we want to look at, you know, I don't really care about my baseline. I actually want to look at how my energy use has changed over the last year. I can start comparing year on year if I like. And so I know my current energy use ends August 31, 2023. Let's look at the last year. How are things different over the last year? So I can still see, okay, my energy performance is decreasing slightly, but over the last year, it's less significant than it was from 2000 until 2023. And so this will give you, once you put in data, you can start actually kind of playing with the data and understanding how are things changing over time. One of the things that I find helpful when we look at this is also this goals tab. We can start setting energy targets here. We can understand what the median property looks like and where we are and how we compare ourselves to the median. And then if we want to set some targets, we can click here. Say we want to look at 10% improvement from where we are now. What would we need to do that? I'm conscientious of the time, and I want to leave some room for question and answer. So I want to show you a couple other things in this system. Yeah.
There, I did see that energy is weather adjusted, but when I looked at the original description, is it reflected in all of the metrics here?
It is. So it is weather normalized. Our score is weather normalized. And so if all of us, because it's heating and cooling zone, it'll take into consideration hotter or cooler than normal. You can, you see this little dot here on change the metrics. If you wanted to look at something else, this is where I think Portfolio Manager gets fun the more data you have. You can actually start looking at all of these different types of metrics and comparing it to each other. So you could look at weather normalized or non-weather normalized if you wanted to have a different viewpoint there too.
Which is the standard, normalized or non-normalized?
The standard is normalized because it gives you a better understanding of your overall efficiency. If you have extremely hot summer, it'll skew, so you have a lot of energy use. But if it's weather normalized, you can actually see year on year on how your building is performing to the weather outside that year. So I would say it's much better to do the weather normalized. A few things when you're in Portfolio Manager. This row of tabs that's kind of in the middle of my screen is specific to the property that you're working on. And that would be specific to my UU test. This row of tabs in my upper right-hand corner is going to be kind of a higher level row of tabs. If you need help, the help desk is outstanding. There's exceptional FAQs. You can ask a question and the staff will get back to you. I've never waited more than 24 hours for a very detailed response from the Portfolio Manager staff. Additionally, if you want to know how Portfolio Manager figures out what the greenhouse gas emissions are and you're interested in the technical detail, these references are a great way to learn more. And so all of that is really helpful. If you ever get lost, you can always go back and just click on Portfolio Manager and it'll take you to the dashboard you saw right when you logged in. Once you start making contacts, if you want to share your account with others in your congregation, you can go here in your contacts and make connections with people, and then that will allow you to share your account with those people. For now, I'm going to stop sharing and just show 2 or 3 more slides briefly. And so we can wrap up. But if anyone has any questions as I'm going through this, please take yourself off mute and I'd be happy to walk through them. Okay. This is a quick visual on the Energy Star score. I think we've gone through that, but it is a helpful way of understanding, in a sense, where you're falling. Jerry and I have worked with worship facilities that have received a 1. They do exist, and ones that have received a 100. And I think what's important as you look at your score is, it gives you a good understanding of where you are, but also what your potential is. If you're scoring a 1, you have a huge potential for energy efficiency improvements compared to someone who may be scoring a 95. And I think it's helpful to look at it of what is feasible for our property and for us to make an impact. And then just briefly talk about Energy Star certification. That would be those that are in the top quartile. Since certification became available for worship facilities, we have 136 different ones that have earned the Energy Star. I do always like to highlight the state of Michigan, which has done dedicated outreach and support for energy efficiency help for worship facilities, especially those in disadvantaged communities. And of our 136, almost half of them come from the state of Michigan, which is, I think, a huge accomplishment. I did check, and there's 3 in Virginia that have earned certification, and of our 136, 8 of them are from Unitarian churches across the country. If you need more help or want more information, Portfolio Manager has live webinars. They also have training videos on YouTube, a lot of guides and fact sheets. That help desk where I showed you earlier, you can download all of that. And a lot of these are really helpful trainings, especially if you just want to look at a certain specific point or something that's in Portfolio Manager. We looked at the help desk here, and then here's my information. Again, I welcome any outreach questions, or if you want to set up a time to go through and walk through your building, and even, you know, just say, hey, I'm not understanding this, or why do I keep getting an error message here? It's easy for us to do a quick call and set up a screen and look through that. Okay, any questions right now? I'm going to take a quick look in the chat and see if there's any.
This is
Yeah.
Joe. This is Joe Cohen again. The one thing I saw, just, you know, since I haven't walked through it, that I'm wondering if it how well the system can include like pretty large changes in occupancy. For instance, space might change from a school during 8 months to 2 months of no occupancy to 6 weeks of a summer camp.
Yeah.
Would that be 3 different sites? And how do you you know, and how do you get from like a week? I see the weekly numbers, but does it, you know, things might be not operating at the worst time, you know, at the most energy intensive time of the year. How do you adjust for all those kinds of occupancy differences?
Yeah, it's a great question. Couple things is, if you have different property types, like if you tell the system that you have a school in there or a daycare, it'll ask you specific occupancy hours for that specific building type. If you have a building as a whole, it's going to ask you, on average, what does this look like? And so that's a little bit of you making a judgment call. You know, how many weeks a year do we have this level of occupancy versus this level of occupancy? If it's split out by building types or use types, as we saw in the example where you have a school or a daycare, it's a lot easier to put that, you know, daily or weekly occupancy in the system through that use type.
Can you then also get into the seasonal and subseasonal differences?
The system doesn't ask that yet. However, it suggests that you average it across the year. And so you could take that into consideration when you're putting your occupancy in there. One of the nice things is once you get an account set up, you can go in and actually, you know, change your operating hours and just see how that impacts your score as well. So you can see, in a sense, the weight that occupancy has on changing your energy efficiency profile.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so yes, COVID, Eric, I'm looking at your comments. COVID did impact, obviously, worship facilities were pretty severely impacted in terms of operating hours and use characteristics. The score was taken into consideration for COVID data, but everyone had significantly different situations. So I always, you know, I usually do an asterisk on 2020 and 2021 data because of COVID.
This is Bill Howe here. Are there specific funding opportunities or grant opportunities for those who would like to upgrade their, we'll say, their appliances or any of their fuel facilities or anything along that line?
Yes. Jerry, do you want to jump in on this? We do know that there's a number of IRA opportunities with the Inflation Reduction Act, but Jerry, do you have any other ones that you'd specifically point to?
Let's see. Everyone, we have Virginia and Maryland here, right?
Right.
IBDC. One thing is particularly Maryland, check with your state energy office and utilities. Virginia, not so much, but see if you have any utility rebates or maybe free technical support. And Eric, you were, I think, talking earlier about some tech support from the utility, right?
Right. Let me respond to Bill, but also specific to Virginia congregations. Dominion, and I assume also Appalachian. I don't know about local co-ops, but at least Dominion and Appalachian Power both have rebates that are available to what are considered either small or mid-sized businesses, depending on your the number of kilowatts that are used. There are the Inflation Reduction Act does make some direct pays for energy efficiency upgrades. The final regulations have not been released yet, and as soon as they are, I'll send them out to everybody. You have to register ahead of time. Your organization has to register, and it's I think going to be a pretty straightforward process, but the IRS has not released that process yet. Dominion Electric has contracted with Honeywell, an international company that does building management controls and a whole lot of other things. And Honeywell will do for free an analysis of utility bills, do at some level an energy audit of, basically walking through and seeing where can you, pull up that 10% at least that Thayer was talking about of energy efficiency repairs that can be done at low or no cost, and then provide technical assistance. And that is for free to Dominion customers. Again, in the case of Harrisonburg, since you're an electric co-op, I don't know what those resources are, and it's important to go and talk to your utility.
I just put in the chat the URL for the Energy and Environmental Study Institute, eesi.org. I don't know if the Desire website, dsire.org, I believe it is. It's a database of state utility and state energy office rebates. But since I think we're kind of covering Virginia, Maryland, okay.
So Jerry, what I just did was put in the chat my email.
Yeah.
So if there are questions that you have, please, any of the participants, send them to me and I will forward them on to Thayer and Jerry, who actually have answers. Let me say, I want to thank the two of you very much for this really informative and useful presentation. We have scheduled our next webinar on December 12th at 7 o'clock. And right now we are suggesting it will either focus on HVAC systems and or solar. So stay tuned, but maybe put down in your calendar December 12th at 7 o'clock, and we'll send out emails. So I want to again thank everyone for participating. If you have not put your name and your congregation in the chat, please do so, because that's the only way I can kind of keep track and make sure that everybody gets the information. I've been recording this, so I'll download it, maybe do a little bit of edits, and then send you all the link so that if there's anything that you wish to go over again, you can do so. Also,
in a moment, I'll send you a link to Green Power Partnerships at EPA. they have a good toolkit for consideration of solar.
Excellent. Okay, everybody, thank you very much, and let's go watch the election returns.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.